So we can begin, and today's topic is called company charges. It's called company charges. So company charges, that is what we are looking at. We're still under the topic of debt capital. Still under the topic of debt capital. So you can begin and write that a charge is an encumbrance. Encumbrance. A charge is an encumbrance upon real or personal property, upon real or personal property, granting the holder certain rights over that property. Certain rights over that property. First of all. It is also said to be the use of, company assets. The use of company assets is a collateral security. For any debt capital obtained by a company. For any debt capital obtained by a company. First of all, the charge can either be fixed, or can either be on fixed assets. The charge can either be on fixed assets, current assets, and intangible assets. Stop. A charge may be fixed or floating. A charge may be fixed or floating. Yeah, so we are saying a charge is simply a claim against an asset, or is simply the use of an asset as a security for any debt that the company has acquired. And the assets that can be used as security, they could be fixed assets, they could be current assets, they could also be what? The intangible assets. And having done accounting, you know the very many examples of fixed assets, the examples of current assets, the examples of intangible assets. Good. Now we have said that it can be either fixed or floating. So let's discuss fixed charge. Fixed charge. Fixed charge. And we write that this is a form of protection. This is a form of protection given to secured creditors, given to secured creditors, relating to specific assets, relating to specific assets. First of all, the holder gets right of enforcement, against the identified asset. Right of enforcement against the identified asset in the event of a default. In the event of a default. First of all, if the company disposes the charged asset, if the company disposes the charged asset, it must use the proceeds to pay the secured debts. It must use the proceeds to pay the secured debts. Yeah, so that is what we call a fixed charge. So there is a particular asset that has been identified. We have told you that your right is over our car, KBC, this is the number. You are right, your debt is over this land that is somewhere here. And in the event we do not pay you, you have the right to enforce against that asset. Let's look at advantages of fixed charges. Advantages of fixed charges. Advantages of fixed charges. Number one, they rank first in order of priority. They rank first in order of priority in liquidation. In liquidation. Number two, they attach to the asset. They attach to the asset as soon as the charge is created. They attach to the asset as soon as the charge is created. Another advantage is that the value of the asset is well known. The value of the asset is well known. Another advantage is that the holder of the charge can control usage of the asset. The holder of the charge can control usage of the asset. Control usage of the asset. So those are the advantages when you have a fixed charge of a specific asset, and I think they are very, very clear. Let's look at disadvantages of fixed charges. Disadvantages of fixed charges. Disadvantages of fixed charges. And we write that they appear intimidating to the company. They appear intimidating to the company because of the restrictions placed to the company. Because of the restrictions placed to the company. Number two, financial institutions tend to look down on fixed charge loans. Tend to look down on fixed charge loans. So those are the two main disadvantages, that they appear threatening to the company. There are a lot of conditions that are placed on them. So as the owner of the asset, you feel like the property is yours, but you are really controlled. The other thing is that the banks or the financial institutions, they don't want these assets because to convert them to cash is very difficult. Actually, if you have a land and you have a title deed and you want to use it to secure a loan, it becomes difficult. Yeah, they take you through a lot of processes, even when you're using the logbook of a car, compared to when you want to use your salary. Because salary, they know, in case you default, there is no much effort that is required on their side. Let's now look at floating charge. That was about fixed charge. Let's look at floating charge. Floating charge. Floating charge. Floating charge, and we write that this is an equitable charge. This is an equitable charge. An equitable charge over assets of a particular description. Over assets of a particular description owned by the company. Owned by the company from time to time. From time to time, e.g. stocks. E.g. stocks. First of all, it is therefore not based on any specific asset. It is therefore not based on any specific asset. First of all, it has the following characteristics. It has the following characteristics. One, the charge is on a class of assets. The charge is on a class of assets. Class of assets, present or future. Present or future. Number two, the value of the asset changes from time to time. The value of the asset changes from time to time. Number three is that the company can use the asset freely. The company can use the asset freely. Another one is that they rank after fixed charges. They rank after fixed charges. And another one is that they rank, or rather they remain dormant. They remain dormant until the holder activates the right. Until the holder activates the right. Until the holder activates the right. Let's look at this question of April 2022. Question 4C. April 2022. Question 4C. It's on page 6. So the question says that describe 3 characteristics of a debenture which creates a floating charge on the assets for the company. So we have said the characteristics are: 1, it has a charge on a class of assets, which are either present or they will be owned in future. Number two, the value keeps on changing from time to time. Number three, the company is free to use the asset as they wish. Number four, they rank after fixed charges. And number five, they remain dormant until the holder exercises their right. So the candidate there has been required to just take 3 of those 5. Let's look at creation of a floating charge. Creation of a floating charge. Creation of a floating charge. Okay, I'll write that. A floating charge is created by express words. Is created by express words. A floating charge is created by express words. The following rules apply. The following rules apply. Number 1, it operates as an immediate. It operates as an immediate or continued charge on the property subject only to the company's power. Subject only to the company's power to deal with the property. Company's power to deal with the property in its normal business. To deal with the property in its normal business. Number 2, unless otherwise stated. Unless otherwise stated, the company can create specific mortgages. The company can create specific mortgages. Company can create specific mortgages ranking in priority. Ranking in priority to the floating charge. The floating charge. Number 3, it is valid against execution creditors. It is valid against execution creditors. Number 4, it is valid against. It is valid against unsecured creditors in winding up. Against unsecured creditors in winding up. Another one is that it retains its floating character. It retains its floating character. Floating character until a receiver is appointed by the court. Until a receiver is appointed by the court or debenture holder. By the court or debenture holders. And number 6 is that a landlord can distrain for rent. A landlord can distrain for rent. And distrain for rent. So that means the landlord can be able to interfere with rent Like this, that is very, very clear. Let's look at crystallization of a floating charge. 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 And write that this refers to conversion. This refers to conversion of a floating charge to a fixed charge. Conversion of a floating charge to a fixed charge. Poster. It occurs on the happening of such events as it occurs on the happening of such events as one, the company goes into liquidation. The company goes into liquidation. Number two, appointment of a receiver. Appointment of a receiver. Number three, the company ceases to carry on business. The company ceases to carry on business or ceases to be a going concern. Or ceases to be a going concern. Number four is that the creditor takes possession of assets. The creditor takes possession of assets subject to the charge. Subject to the charge. Another one, number five, is commencement of any recovery proceedings. Commencement of any recovery proceedings. Recovery proceedings against the company. Recovery proceedings against the company. Number six is breach of terms of a charge. Breach of terms of a charge. Breach of terms of a charge. So let's look at December 2022, question 5A. December 2022, question 5A. Now here, the question had said in Yorkshire Wool Co.Law Association Limited, a floating charge is described as one that hovers over the assets of the company as compared to a fixed charge. With reference to these statements, describe three circumstances that will cause crystallization of a floating charge. So number one, tumesema when the company goes into liquidation. Number two, if the company or if a receiver is appointed by whoever appoints them. Then number three, if the company ceases to do business or for whatever reasons, the company is no longer going concern. Number four, tumesema a creditor has come to recover that asset. And number five is that there are proceedings, the recovery proceedings, they have been begun against the asset that was charged. And number six is when there is breach of terms of the contract. So out of those six, the candidate should have provided three. Number two is outline two characters of a fixed charge. I think we have looked at a fixed charge And we have said it is where you are given what? A specific asset. Now, when they ask you of the characters, you can also use the disadvantages or disadvantages. They are also characters. Like now, this advantage number one that you have said, you can say they rank first in the order of priority in what? Liquidation. They attach to a particular asset. The value of the asset is known. So when you are told about characters, they are about the advantages and disadvantages. And you are going to prove that. You see, for the floating charge, I've given you some characters. Now, some of these 5 characters that I've given you, you will find them being mentioned when we talk about the advantages and disadvantages. Yeah, so I think that is clear. May 2017, question 4C. May 2017, question 4C. You go to May 2017, question 4C. Is on page 27. Page 27. For those who have the hard copies, the soft copies could be on different pages. Question 4C, we are told in the context of debt capital, state 4 advantages of a trust deed. I think we discussed that in our last lesson. Number 2, explain 3 instances when a floating charge is deemed to crystallize. So we have given 6 of them. Then there is this other one which you can check later. September 2015, question 5C. It is still about the same. You can look at it later. Let's now look at advantages of a floating charge. Advantages of a floating charge. Advantages of a floating charge. One is that the charger, stroke company, so company can dispose of the assets, and carry on business, without the consent of the floating charge holders, and carry on business without the consent of the floating charge holders. Number 2, floating charge holder can take floating charges over every asset. Over every asset of the company. Number 3 is that floating charge holders can appoint an administrator. Floating charge holders can appoint an administrator. Another advantage is that a floating charge can be removed anytime. A floating charge can be removed anytime. Another one is that if a business fails, another business can take control of the current assets. If a business fails, another business can take control of the current assets. And another one is that a floating charge is better protected. a floating charge is better protected than an unsecured creditor. Than an unsecured creditor. Okay, let's look at this one of May 2021. Question 4A. Roman 2. May 2021. Question 4A of Roman 2. May 2021 is on page, May 21, question 4A is on page 14. It's on page 14. And it says, in the context of debt capital, outline 6 terms contained in a debenture trust deed. Kama ile tumesoma tu saa hii. And highlight 4 advantages of a floating charge. So I think I've told you the charger can dispose the assets even without the permission of the lender. Then you can take the assets, any other assets in the company. So because we said there is no specific asset that has been identified, then you have the powers to appoint an administrator. An administrator is a person who will come and take over the affairs of the company and manages with the objective of paying off the debts that are there. And if that happens, the company is reinstated back to the owners. A floating charge can be removed anytime. That means you can be paid anytime. And if the business fails, you can have another business taking over. So as the lender, you are not in total loss. And it is a little bit better than a creditor who is not secured. Disadvantages of a floating charge. Disadvantages of a floating charge. Disadvantages of a floating charge. 1, personal liability in case business fails. Personal liability in case business fails. In case business fails. Number 2, it is open for fraud by the borrower. It is open for fraud by the borrower. Since the borrower can sell all the assets and keep the cash. Since the borrower can sell all the assets, and keep the cash. Another one is that it may be held invalid. It may be held invalid if it is created within a certain period. If it is created within a certain period prior to the borrower's insolvency. Prior to the borrower's insolvency. Another one is that costs of liquidation and administration. Costs of liquidation and administration are deducted from the charge. Cost of liquidation and administration are deducted from the charge. Deducted from the charge. Another one is that they rank after preferential creditors. They rank after preferential creditors. Look at November 2018. November 2018, question 6B. Roman 2. November 2018. Question 6B, Roman 2. November 2018, question 6B. So if you are there, it's on page 22. Yes. Inasema, in relation to debt capital, highlight 6 types of company charges which require registration as outlined in the Companies Act. So we are going to come to that. Number 2, explain 4 disadvantages of a floating charge to a debenture holder. So number 1, we will tell him if we start from number 5, they rank after the preferential creditors. That means preferential creditors must first of all be paid before he is paid. Number 2, in case he appoints an administrator and there is liquidation, the cost of doing that will be deducted from his charge. So if his money was 1 million, any money that is being incurred in the administration, is 1 million. So you see, it's like he's losing. The other thing is that it may be deemed invalid if it was created a certain period prior to insolvency. There's a situation where the directors came to know that hii kampuni ni kuisha inaisha and it cannot pay the debt. So wanaenda wanakopa, they misuse the money. When the company fails, now you are told hii kampuni it cannot pay you. So in that case, as the person who gave them the money, you will be rejected in the list of those who will be paid. And that is a major disadvantage because you have no power to know the truth about the going concern of the company. In as much as you expect their registers, you may not. Remember, when we talked about the ultra vires reader, we said reading the documents does not necessarily mean that you have understood them. So you can read the statements, but you have not understood what they mean. The other disadvantage is that they can be subject to fraud. The company can sell all the assets without your consent, and they keep the cash. So those are the 4 disadvantages against the venture holder. The 5th one, which we have said there is personal liability. Now that one is a disadvantage to the directors of the company. That in the event the company fails, they will be held personally liable. Good. Let's look at differences between fixed charges and floating charges. Differences between fixed charges and floating charges. Differences between fixed charges and floating charges. So we start with the fixed charge in this side, and then we come to a floating charge this side. The differences. So number 1, for the fixed charge, it is created on a specific asset. It is created on a specific asset. But on this other side, it is created on entire assets. Entire assets of the company. Entire assets of the company. Number 2, a company cannot deal with the assets. A company cannot deal with the assets outside the terms of the charge. Outside the terms of the charge. But on the other side, a company can even sell the assets. A company can even sell the assets without the consent of the reader. Without the consent of the reader. Without the consent of the reader. Number 3. it cannot be converted to floating. It cannot be converted to floating. But on the other side, it can be converted to fixed. It can be converted to fixed. Number 4, it ranks fast. It ranks fast. It ranks fast. But on the other side is it ranks second. They rank second. They rank second. Number 5, registration is compulsory. Registration is compulsory. Registration is compulsory, but on the other side, registration is voluntary. Registration is voluntary. Number 6, it is static nature. It is static in nature. But on this other side, it is dynamic in nature. It is dynamic in nature. So what you are saying is, for the fixed charge, there is a specific asset that we know this is what has been charged. But for the floating, it is like all the assets. We do not know which. So one day you can just come and take any of the assets. The other one is that the company can do whatever, cannot do whatever they think with the asset. They must consult you. And for the floating, they can do whatever they wish without your knowledge. The other thing is that the fixed charge, there is no way you can convert it to become floating. But the floating, you can convert it to become fixed. The other thing is that when it comes to liquidation, the fixed charge will rank fast. It must be paid fast out of what is available. Whatever remains now will be paid to the floating. That's why we are saying it will rank second. Then it must be registered. It's compulsory. But this one is voluntary, it's not a must. Then the fixed charge is static, it does not keep on changing. Even the asset does not keep on changing. But for the floating charge, it is dynamic because the assets keep on changing. For example, we talked of stocks. So today we have this stock, tomorrow we have this other one. So they keep on changing, it's dynamic. Good, let's now look at priority of charges. 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 And we start by noting that different charges over the same property, different charges over the same property may be given to different creditors. May be given to different creditors. First one, the following rules apply. The following rules apply. One, fixed charges rank according to the order of their creation. Fixed charges rank according to the order of their creation. Fixed charges rank according to the order of their creation. Point number 2. A floating charge created before. A floating charge created before a fixed charge. A fixed charge will only take priority. Will only take priority if the fixed charge G, the fixed charge G had a notice of a negative Prague cross. Negative Prague cross in the floating charge. That prevents Arita charge. Number 3. A fixed charge created. Before a floating one has priority. A fixed charge created before a floating one has priority. And number 4 is 2 floating charges take priority. 2 floating charges take priority according to the time of creation. Take priority according to the time of creation. So there is November 2018, question 7C. November 2018, question 7C. Question 7C is simply saying, explain the benefits of including a negative Prague cross in a floating charge to the holder. So the benefit is just one, that the floating charge will still remain in priority over any other charge created thereafter. What we have said is, if this is your asset, you can use it to have different charges, both fixed or floating. And we are saying, if you had created a floating first, and then later on you create a fixed, the fixed takes priority, such that when you come to sell, you that were fixed who was created after will be paid first. The negative, this is negative Prague. Negative Prague cross. That's what you're asking, Bashir? Negative Prague. Negative Prague. Yeah, negative Prague. So negative Prague. So we are saying that in the event that you are selling the asset, the fixed charge G will be paid first. Because tumesema fixed charges they rank first. But when you have put these negative crowns, and this guy is informed that it is there, then his fixed charge cannot take priority over the floating. So that is the advantage that you have when you have a negative credit crowns. Okay, let's now look at sale of charged assets. 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 Point number 1. A fixed chargee, a fixed chargee, that is the holder of a fixed charge. A fixed chargee has recourse to the property. Has recourse to the property in the hand of the third party. In the hand of third party, since the charge is transferable automatically. Since the charge is transferable automatically. Number 2, property only remains charged. Property only remains charged by a floating charge. By a floating charge if the third party had notice of it. If the third party had notice of it when they acquired the property. Had notice of it when they acquired the property. Had notice of it when they acquired the property. So we are saying this: if the asset is on a fixed charge and the company sells to a third party, the chargee is still entitled to that asset. In other words, it's like there is no transfer of that asset. It still belongs to the guy who brought the money. So you can sell to many other persons that you wish, but the ownership belongs to the chargee. It means that the buyers do not acquire the legal right of ownership. They can possess, but they don't own. Now, for the floating, they can buy and possess if they were not aware that there was no such a floating charge. But if they had accrued that these assets have been charged and then they went on and bought, then the floating chargee can come and repossess those assets. So you see now, for the floating charge, it's a bit shaky because it has to depend with did the buyer know or did not know. Now, to prove that he actually knew, it may be difficult. He can argue, me, I did not know. And whoever borrowed money from you did not tell me. How would I have known? And in that mix, you are likely to lose out your money. Good. Registration of charges. Let's look at registration of charges. Registration of charges. Registration of charges. Registration of charges. write that this is lodging. This is lodging. A document containing particulars. A document containing particulars of the charge. And the deed. With the registrar. Within a deadline of 21 days. Within a deadline of 21 days. First of all, it is only after registration. It is only after registration that the holder of a fixed charge, becomes entitled. The holder of a fixed charge becomes entitled to the benefits of the charge. Benefits of the charge. The particulars that are required, are as follows. Particulars that are required are as follows. 1, total amount secured. Number 2, dates of resolutions. Authorizing issue of the charges. Number 3 is general description of the property charged. Number 4 is name of trustee for debenture holders. Next is details of the redder. Number 6 is particulars of the company. And number 7, any commission or discount paid. So that is what we call registration. It is where these debentures, trust deed, and the details of these are submitted to the registrar. And you must submit them within a period of 21 days. And remember, when you look at the differences, we say for the fixed charge, it is a must you register. But for the floating, it is voluntary, it's not a must. So for the fixed charge, you already enjoy the benefits when you comply with this. And you can see the 7 items that we have said you must submit to the registrar, so that from there now you have entitlement. Then down there we write that other charges that must be registered or that are registrable, other charges that are registrable include other charges that are registrable, include 1, charges securing a debenture issue. Charges securing a debenture issue and floating charges. Number 2, goodwill or any other intellectual goodwill or any other intellectual and intangible assets. Goodwill or any other intellectual and intangible assets. Number 3, ships, maybe, or aircraft, or any share in a ship, or any share in a ship, or any share in a ship. Another one, number 4, is receivables. Number 5 is RAD or any interest on RAD. RAD or any interests on RAD. Another one is uncalled share capital. Uncalled share capital. So let's look at this question of August 2022, question 5A. August 2022, question 5A. August 2022, question 5A. Is on page 5. So we have said outline 6 charges that must be submitted to the registrar of companies for registration. I've given you how many? I've given you 7. Are they 7? Which is the 7th one? There's 6. They are 7, although the ones to be managed now, they are reading 6. It is because I have already said the other one that we have talked about, from where we talked about the registration, that was referring to fixed charge. That's why I have opportunity to say other. When you see the word other, it tells you you have something, now this is extra. That's when they're coming to 7. So there is the fixed charge, and then those are the 6 that we have mentioned. The next one is September 2021, question 1B. September 2021, question 1B. September 2021. Question 1B. Inasema, with reference to debt capital, describe 5 types of securities that must be registered as registrable charges. So that's now where you will not include the fixed charge. You now include these other 6 that I've given you. And there is also another one of May 2016, question 6B. May 2016, question 6B. May 2016, question 6B. Can you see it from which page? May 2016, question 6B is on page 20. No, that's 2. It's on page 2. Which says, describe the charges that could be created by a company registered under the Companies Act. So I think we have, they're giving us 10 marks. Yeah. So 10 marks, that means you give at least 5. Give 5 so that each one of them gives you 2 marks. Tunasonga, let's now look at registration process. Registration process. Registration process. And we write that the company is responsible for registration. The company is responsible for registration of the charge, registration of the charge, although any other person can apply for registration. Although any other person can apply for registration. First of all, the registrar issues a certificate. The registrar issues the certificate, which is conclusive evidence. Issues a certificate, which is conclusive evidence. Conclusive evidence that the charge has been duly registered. That the charge has been duly registered. Duly registered. Stop. The 21-day period runs from. The 21-day period runs from the creation of the charge. The creation of the charge, but not making of their own. The creation of the charge, but not making of their own. What you mean by that is, you could sign the documents earlier before you receive the money. Or you could receive the money before you sign the documents. So, signing the documents is what we are calling the creation of the charge. And making of their own is what we are calling the receiving of the money. So the 21 days, they start to count the moment you sign the documents. So it is possible you received money kitambo, or it is possible you shall receive money later, depending on the agreements you have with whoever is giving you the money. But the 21 days start from the day the documents are signed. Okay. Then another point is that the consequences of non-registration are one, the charge becomes null and void. The charge becomes null and void. The charge becomes null and void. Number 2, the creditor has no right of re-entry. The creditor has no right of re-entry and document of title. Right of re-entry, document of title. Document of title. Number 3, the charges become unenforceable. The charges become unenforceable. Unenforceable. Unless secured. Unless secured. Number 4 is that the first charge will lose their priority. The first charge will lose their priority when a subsequent charge is registered. The first charge will lose their priority when a subsequent charge is registered. Another one is that the borrower is still liable to pay the debts. The borrower is still liable to pay the debts. Maybe I need to clarify that. You see, point 1, we say the charge becomes void. That does not mean that you no longer owe the money. What it simply means, the lender has no right over your assets. Hawezi kuja kwa kampuni yako achukue your property and go and sell. They cannot put restrictions over you. But you still owe them the money and you should pay. So that's the meaning, so that we don't confuse. When we say the charge is null, that means the borrower, or rather the lender, has no right of enforcement over your asset, but you still remain liable. Ukweli ni kwamba ulichukua that money and you must pay. Yeah, you must pay. Other mechanisms or other procedures of enforcing that can be put in place. Number 6 is that the company and its officers are liable. The company and its officers are liable and punishable for non-registration. The company and its officers are liable and punishable for non-registration. NB. The charges can be avoided. The charges can be avoided due to the provisions of the Act. Due to the provisions of the Act relating to provisions of the Act relating to Roman 1. Floating charges created in the period. Floating charges created in the period leading to winding up. In the period leading to winding up. In the period prior to winding up. And Roman 2, non-registration of fixed charges. Non-registration of fixed charges. So we are saying the charge can be avoided if you do not register. And again, if they are floating and we realize that they were created slightly before the liquidation, then you can still avoid. Yeah. But remember, tumesema upon liquidation, the floating charge becomes fixed. It crystallizes. Another point now down there, we write that any debenture holder without security, any debenture holder without security has the same rights as any other creditor. without security has the same rights as any other creditor. The remedies in such cases include number one, sue the company for debt and seize the property. Sue the company for debt and seize the property. And sue the company for debt and seize the property. Number two, present a petition to the court for compulsory liquidation. Present a petition to the court for compulsory liquidation. A petition to the court for compulsory liquidation. Another one is apply to the court. Apply to the court for an administration order. Apply to the court for an administration order. And number four is rank with ordinary creditors. Rank with ordinary creditors is a special creditor. Ordinary creditors is a special creditor. Special creditor. What we mean by that is that you will not be given preference, but now you are given permission to be recognized as a creditor. Ordinary creditors, we know they give, they become old because of ordinary businesses of the company. Like maybe they supplied or they offered this particular service and so on. And that's how they become ordinary creditors, which we normally pay maybe regularly every month or whatever period. But this debt, which was providing capital, is not part of creditors. But now that it was not secured, we can allow them to be treated like any other creditor. In that case, we will call them special creditors, meaning they did not come up in the normal way of ordinary creditor. Okay, another point below those ones is that in case the debenture is secured, in case the debenture is secured on a specific asset, the debtor can, number one, appoint an administrator over the company. Appoint an administrator over the company. Number two, appoint a receiver over the assets. Appoint a receiver over the assets. Number three, take possession of the assets. Take possession of the assets. Another one is sell the asset. Sell the asset. And the last one is apply for a foreclosure. Apply for a foreclosure. Apply for a foreclosure. Foreclosure means the company is prevented from selling the assets. Yeah. So there is the question of December 2022, question 5B. December 2022, question 5B. 5B inasema Mada Transporters Limited registered a charge on its fleet of motor vehicles in favor of Co.Law Bank to secure a borrowing of Kenya shillings 50 million. Mada Transporters Limited has defaulted on their own repayment, outlining 4 options available to Co.Law Bank as the chargee. Yeah. So this one is something that is secured. There is an asset that has been identified because they used what? The vehicles. So Co.Law Bank can appoint an administrator. Administrator will come and run the affairs of the company for a period until when the debt is paid. Or he can appoint a receiver. The receiver will already come to manage the vehicles. You not interfere with the other affairs of the company. Just deal with the vehicles to ensure that the vehicles are safe and whatever else. Then he can still possess the vehicles. Co.Law Bank can go and take over the vehicles and start using them. They can also decide to sell the vehicles. They can, because already the document is registered. I mean, the charge is registered. And they can also apply to the court, whereby they tell the court, we are not going to sell the assets, we are not going to possess them, but the company must be prevented from selling them. Yeah. Company must be prevented. So those are the 5 remedies that are available to Co.Law Bank. So we come to the end of today's lesson. At that point, we will pick up from there in the next lesson. Thank you.